light for you in dark places when all other lights go out.
Hello, SBG community, and welcome to another episode of A Light in the Dark. And I know it's been a while since I've posted one of these. As you guys know, I'm actually kind of like almost a one-man show here, posting videos like the GBHL do, however, just kind of by myself. Now, as you guys know, there's a bunch of community members in our area, but it's really tough to get everyone together. And actually, just touching on that really fast, one thing you may have noticed is that, well, one, Walker's not here. Of course, I already explained in a previous video why that is. And in two, now our bat reps for the battle companies has kind of like stopped suddenly. And that's because Sam Walker moved away to Pennsylvania. Now, I don't know if you guys know America. Well, one of my viewers, I'm sure, is not American. But this country is huge, and it would be really difficult to get us all kind of merged up and together. As many of you guys have also seen, unfortunately, there's been other times where, like, Alex Wright, our terrain maker, moved to Connecticut, which is even further than Pennsylvania and more in the middle of nowhere, thus more irrelevant. But no, he's just, you know, we're moving away, we're moving around. Unfortunately, SBG is just a hobby for us, of course, like any other. And so, you know, it takes a back seat to life functions and things that are going on. So, I'm going to go ahead and cover the Light in the Dark videos now. I'm going to start doing these up until Nova, the same as last year, just kind of running through them. Actually, I might extend further into Articon because, hey, why not? And who knows? Maybe if I have the stamina, I'll continue going straight from there. So, obviously, you guys have seen this cool display I've set up. Actually, if you guys are interested in some of these things, you can win them at our tournaments. But other than that, or you can play on them in the case of our boards. We have Goblin Town and Helm's Deep behind us, or me, and so yeah, I love these boards, and you will see bat reps on all of them. If you have already not seen them already, we actually do bat reps on all of these. So I guess today these videos are for those of you who remember, is a question answer format. Of course, the GBHL already do speak friend in question. However, we also have news to get out there in the community. And of course, we're going to actually talk about other topics and stuff like that. So, but it is good to get back into our question answers because a lot of people actually had a lot of questions for us. Exactly what was, you know, going on with especially Nova Open, the biggest tournament we have here in America for SBG. So, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and get into it. We actually had a comment from a user about a month ago named Here's Yosef. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. And I just wanted to address his comment today. So, he says, first of all, I'd like to congratulate you on how fast your channel is growing. Having an account that is merely centered on SBG. I basically grew up with a universe that Tolkien has created, and the fact that there is a game that allows me to recreate the battles I loved reading, watching, and so much is just great. I have a huge problem though. I live in Argentina, South America, where miniature wargaming is not popular activity. However, I've decided to take on the task of making SBG community grow and make the hobby get to my area, despite not having any local shops where I can buy the product and play the actual game, which means that all purchases have to be done by me. My question to you are the following. Now, before we get into the questions, I should address the fact of his difficulty. Not only is he already in a very difficult remote location, and I guess I'll speak to you directly because you posted this on my channel, I assume you are a viewer of the channel, but you're in an extremely remote area for miniature gaming, of course, not just in general, and you already don't have an established base to work with, so this is definitely tough. However, I have done it before, except with I've actually had a community group like that at least played 40K. I mean, someone played something, so it's going to be a little tough, but let's hope I can give you some help by addressing these questions. Now, I did, of course, reply to these in a comment back to you. The reason I took so long is because this comment was somehow registered as spam. YouTube just thought you were spamming me, I guess, and it got dumped into another folder. For you YouTubers up there, you know what I'm talking about. They kind of there's like 3 sections where you have messages, or I'm sorry, regular comments, and then there's another one in the spam folder. You're supposed to look at that spam folder, but generally it does a pretty good job about eliminating people who are like, click my link and stupid stuff. So, I'm going to go ahead and repeat these answers, though, for those of our viewers who haven't actually seen the email, of course, which was just to you. So he says, number 1, should I stick with the idea of introducing people to the hobby, or should I concentrate on my own collection? All right, so here's what I would say. The way I always go about it is to basically allow them to play with my miniatures starting off. And I'm like, you don't have to make any investments, you don't have to do anything. Just play with my miniatures, just play this game, try it out. I think that's a great way to start them off. However, it is really encouraged that they buy their own miniatures eventually. The reason why is mostly because that builds an investment. You want your players to invest into the hobby. The fact that they paint these models and take all this time to assemble them, you may notice that a lot of hobbyists, if you were to talk about the most valuable thing in their house, unexpectedly to anyone who's outside the hobby, we would often say our models. The weight of our models cannot be, in a monetary value, can really not be calculated due to the amount of time and the amount of emotion poured into these things. You want those players that you have in your community to also get that same type of feeling. If they're just playing arbitrarily with your stuff all the time, then they pretty much look at your models the same way outsiders look at the hobbyist community. So you really need to definitely encourage them over time to get their own models. Of course, I would suggest do not pressure them into buying all the big stuff. Try to keep the game small and allow proxying wherever you can, because the point is to get them into the game. Once you got the initial base and community, then you can branch out from there. But just to get that base, you definitely want them to buy in. So, next question you have is, besides purchasing the starter set Escape from Goblin Town, what is the best way to make people want to invest in the game? So, actually, contrary to what Games Workshop says, I personally don't think Escape from Goblin Town is the best way to get into the hobby. This sounds really, really crazy because it's got the rules, and I understand it's got the rules out there. I guess, can leap ahead, and I know that your player base doesn't have quite the money to get crazy sets. And here, so this is a two-part thing, ultimately. Number 1, you have Escape from Goblin Town restricts you to Goblin Town and Thorns Company. And while that's very thematic and that's awesome and it is a bargain deal, don't get me wrong, the Thorns Company is an amazing deal. Oftentimes I find that players are like, what army should I start? And I say you should start whatever it is that appeals to you aesthetically. We have the benefit of playing a game that's so well balanced, I can say that, and I'm not hurting them competitively. So then they look at the armies and like, okay, I want to play Rohan or Gondor. They don't really get that option playing with the starter set. Now, if they already have you, then that means you already have the rules. And if you're the one building up this community, then you can give them the rules. So at least starting out, you can certainly get the box set, but then you're dealing with the really annoying Goblin King and a very powerful Thorns Company every time you get one scenario, and you really can't mix it up too much because they just have only really technically one army, which is Goblin Town. So that's not really giving you the fullest experience of the game. I think the fullest experience, even with one army, is to just simply you and your opponent sit down and you play different tactics, different strategies. It's almost like chess. You feel almost evenly matched. In Goblin Town, Escape from Goblin Town is a scenario game. It's not meant to be evenly matched. If you find this weird, even Games Workshop expects this. The new Horus Heresy box that got released, Escape from Caliph, honestly, no one's playing the board game. Even Forge World's advertising is, look at all these models you get. So it's not like the board game is bad, but it's like the bigger investment really is the fact that you're getting these armies. Well, Escape from Goblin Town doesn't give you that. So anyway, long story short, get them to buy about $100 worth of, and I say $100, obviously you're in Argentina, you don't have dollars, but reasonably, based on your economics, a reasonable number just to start with and get them into it that way with their favorite models they want to collect. So he says, number 3, do I have to have a team of friends to help me organize a community? So I have never organized a community without at least one friend there. So the start of the DCHL is actually a story where it's just 2 people, really. It was me and Alex Wright from Wright Wargame Terrain. Now, technically, there was another community that already existed in the Games Workshop that I went to. but I didn't know they existed. Honestly, they were very small. I believe like 4 guys. Some of them you guys have met. DCHL Rob, if you watch our Nova videos, he is pretty much the grandfather of all of this with him and his friends as a cohesive team. Now, they never rose to be like a massive league, but that wasn't the intention. It was just simply, whatever. But, so I guess when I talk about the DCHL, I'm referring to really just the massive organization. And I assume since you're coming to me about this, you're thinking about trying to grow it into something big. And like I said, started with 2 people. Now, even if we get around the fact that Games Workshop already had 4 players existing in the store, I can even avoid that and say I actually started a 30-man community much further away from here where I didn't have quite that advantage. And you can do it with just you and 1 friend. The only thing is you need to be rather really, really diligent. I mean, I was in Games Workshop every weekend, every Friday, every Saturday, every Sunday without fail. Kind of really hurts your social life a little bit. I still went out at nighttime, so it's great that Games Workshop isn't open till midnight. But basically, it definitely takes a lot of work. They need constant exposure. The initial reaction of most people when they see something is to rather more ignore it. So you first need to build up a sense of familiarity to it, and then you can start to hook them into the game. Most often what you're going to find when you start off is a lot of players will look at it and be like, oh, that's cool. I love Lord of the Rings. I'm going to start my army, today. Or, oh man, how can I get into this? I'm going to contact you, and you give them your information. It's exciting, and then you never hear from them. So you still need that core group, those guys that you can constantly play with over and over and over again, because even after you reach out for a little while, you may not even get any traction with it. So that's just something of note. I mean, I was in there literally 4 weekends, every weekend, 3 times in that weekend, sometimes on weekdays. And that's how I built my community. And of course, as the community leaders like Walker and Rob and the others who are in our community show up, then it makes it much easier. So then I got number 4 here. He says, if all this fails and I see myself in a situation of merely concentrating on my own collection, what is the best way I could start? I am trying to decide whether I should choose Isengard, Rohan, Dwarves, or Angmar as my main army. So regarding your choices, I would definitely say you should probably go with Isengard and Rohan first. Now, here's the reason I say this. If you take the 4 armies you just said, Angmar, number 1 is my number 1 pick for definitely don't do it. It's not because it's not competitive, it's amazing for us, but you're trying to grow a community, and Angmar is probably the most frustrating force to fight besides flying ring raids. So, I mean, if you think about it, Angmar is really an army where the entire army kind of sucks in combat and almost in general sense, but it denies your opponent the ability to play the game through paralysis, through moving their models, through terror, through stopping heroic actions, through stopping their might with the Dwemer Lake. I mean, Angmar is a shutdown army. Its sole job is to suck the fun out of your opponent. So, which is kind of why I kind of wish maybe some of the format would be changed for that army, but it is a very hated army as far as like new guys. Now, veteran players generally don't care. They're going to be like, whatever. But you are catering to new people. Now, the other reason I say dwarves are exciting. Dwarves are like one of those races that everyone's out to collect. And if your new guys say, oh, I'm going to get into dwarves, great. Encourage them to do so. But if they don't say that, you don't want to start them off with an army where you constantly need 6s to kill them. Dwarves single-handedly drag on the game. Now, this is expected. Veterans can beat dwarves with efficiency because we know how to do it. But a new player is going to get very frustrated dealing with your 7 defense dwarves and realizing that all their strength values, whether they played Isengard or whatever the hell, doesn't matter anymore. They're just needing 6s. Now, of course, there are weapon strikes and stuff like that, but you're starting them off pretty simply. And if they don't have any axes, then they really don't have any way to up their strength to deal with it, and they just have to get them trapped. But trapping an opponent takes tactics, and that's something that your new players aren't going to have. So I would say definitely start with Isengard, start with Rohan. And Rohan and Isengard also have a very themey feel. It's armies that people are very, very used to. from the most popular of the franchises of Lord of the Rings. And I think Isengard would be probably my top pick. Rohan is a pretty unforgiving army. You mess up with them, and it's all downhill from there. But Isengard is that perfect stat line. They're a very simplistic race or faction. They're very, like, it's kind of like the perfect beginner race, if I have to really say any one is. They kill fast, they can take a beating, but not so much of one that they're impossible, and they're very, very, very simple. So I would say Isengard. Now, it says number 5, when I start my own collection, what do I have to purchase in the first place? So I'm going to try to understand this question. I believe starting your own collection, what are you going to purchase? I guess 2 boxes of Warriors and then a command pack. That would be probably the simplest way to start this game. It's probably the cheapest way. The only problem is it loses its theme. So you kind of want those name characters. Lord of the Rings really thrives off its name characters. So you're probably going to want to deal with, let's say you go with Isengard. I would not start with Saruman. I don't think there's a necessary for that. You can just get Lurtz and, just your traditional, heroes, that the name characters. 1 box of them, and then just 2 boxes of Warriors. I believe this is what you're referring to with just starting your collection. Other than that, I can't imagine what you're referring to. Terrain can be done with books and, stuff like that. You can tape measures found everywhere. So, yeah, I guess collection-wise, just 2 boxes of Warriors and a hero. And I guess to his last part of his question, how much money do you think I should spend on my first purchase? This is a very difficult question to answer because it really depends on, one, there's a lot of information I don't know. I don't know how wealthy you are, I don't know how wealthy your friends are, I don't know the economics of Argentina, so I don't know if things are particularly very, very expensive there. I also don't know, because you're converting everything based on a pound, I know that, like Australia, for instance, they're practically paying double for everything that I pay for, and I think there's customs rates and stuff like that. The economics of your country are going to really dictate how much you can actually spend. For me to answer that question here in DC would be very impossible. So I often say I have a series of videos how to buy an army for under $100. So I figure under $100 should be the amount that you would want to pay here in America. The pound is much stronger than the dollar, so I imagine they can get, not much stronger, but it's a little bit more. So in England, they could get a little bit more than we can. In Australia, they can get a little bit less. But it's tough. That's a really, really tough question to answer. I would just say whatever 2 war bands and a hero cost, I'd probably stick with that. And I think that would be a reasonable purchase, considering you don't even have a player base of hobbyists, of miniature war gamers in your area. So, yeah, that's my very lengthy answer to your questions. He finishes off with, thanks for your time, wish you the best in life, as well as you continue to grow the channel and community. Cheers. And awesome. So, I mean, this is a month ago he posted this. I don't know if he has started on that. Actually, I'd be curious to let me know if you've had any traction with that, or if, because of my spam inbox, you thought I gave up on you. So I would hope not. The GBHL are right there. They can answer questions too, and the OSBGL are actually just now rising up the ranks pretty fast. So of course you got them. They don't have a YouTube channel, they have a Facebook page, but they're pretty responsive. So I guess I'll just hit 2 more questions in old traditional light in the dark fashion. We actually have a lot of questions kind of buried. I answered them in the comments section, but I didn't answer them in official video format. But since we're getting back into it, Donkey Kong 0303 says, I'm thinking of making a dwarf army, but I'd like to make the most of my army from the new dwarves. I realize they don't have any archers though. Should I buy some from the old set and leave out archers at all, or should I do with making a dwarf army? Should I leave out archers at all, or what should I do with my dwarf army? Any help would be appreciated. So, dwarves, in my opinion, don't really need archers to function. In fact, most dwarf forces you'll see without them. So, in fact, even more so, the rangers, which are some of their I guess elite archers is how they would almost describe it. Those models are often fielded without any bows at all, or without any throwing weapons. It makes them really, really cheap and spammable. So, should you go back to get some old archers? No, I don't think so. In fact, I think the better thing about allying into Erebor is to get spears. I mean, dwarves have been missing spears for a while, an often famed weakness of the dwarves, and now it's gone. You know, it takes us a simple alliance into Erebor to get them. You also have a plethora of heroes to ally into. I think there is a much better range of options than just simply archers. So I know you get them in a box of dwarf warriors back in the day. I'm sorry, not even back in the day. In the box of 12 dwarf warriors, you get 4 archers, and there's your archers. I don't play them. I rarely play them. They're nice. They're not bad. Keep in mind, they're basically anti-archer archers because they can't be shot at in return. They're defense 6. They basically do what Corsair Arbalists want to do, but all day. You know, even in close combat. So, but yeah, just I don't think dwarves or archers are so necessary to stress about. Just more a filler in your army. If you are going to get them at all, I would definitely stick to the armored regular dwarves versus dwarf rangers. I understand the increase in range is awesome, but the price tag on the Dwarven Archers that have strength 3 bows is phenomenal. And the fact that they can't even be threatened with bow fire really easily is great. So yeah, definitely Dwarf Archers all the way. I would kind of skip the Rangers. If you can field Rangers, I would just do them without any equipment. You can do them with bows. You'll see in my latest bat rep, I did it with bows, but I mean, it's just a preference of mine that I prefer the Strength 3 dwarves, Strength 3 bowfire dwarves. So let's go on to the last question for today, and it's going to be Jeremy Smith, Light in the Dark topic. Poisoned Rocks, Fury saves for Easterling horses. Rules as written versus rules as intended. So, this is actually the famous debate of Lord of the Rings, and one that Adam Trolk, the, current and future purveyor of games for SBG is going to have to deal with. So, rules as written, what he's referring to, guys, is Poisoned Rocks is a reference to the Haradrim. The Haradrim state that any shooting weapon shooting attack that they make rerolls 1s because they have poisoned weapons. Now, when that rule was created, it was pretty much intended for their bows. That's what it was thought of. And they just kind of worded it in a way where it's generic, but it really didn't matter. Now, the problem came about when Mumakil allowed Haradrim to throw rocks, so it gave them a new shooting weapon. So if they're on the Howdah, you can get an upgrade, they can get rocks and throw strength 6 rocks at 8-inch range. And so they had an option. The problem is the wording of poisoned weapons says that any shooting attack made by the Haradrim are poisoned, so they reroll 1. So yes, your rocks are poisoned. At Nova Open, they will be poisoned. So if you come to any of our tournaments, it is rules as written, it's poisoned, and that's how we go. Now, I understand where the rules as intended debate comes in. Generally, we only apply that if it's like game breaking. So you may have heard of our most recent video where there was a Light and Dark episode where, in fact, it was a 600 comment debate about shooting into a combat, or I'm sorry, shooting on a model with models in the way. Just watch that video. I won't go into it here because it's insane, but essentially, rules as written sometimes breaks the game. Sometimes you really can't go rules as written, but when it doesn't break the game, that's when I say go with it. Just try to come up with your own fluff in your head. Poisoned rocks, I don't know, they coated it with poison spikes or barbs and tossed them. There's a number of ways you can look at it. Maybe the height of gravity and all that, re-rolling 1s, maybe it's just because they're stronger. So they're not really poisoned, it just is a side effect. I mean, ultimately, though, it doesn't break the game. You re-roll 1s, it's powerful, it's interesting, but it's not like something I need to change now. Another thing is Fury saves for Easterling horses. And once again, not a broken rule. So what he's referring to is Easterling Fury priests, or war priests, have a Fury rule that says that all models in the Easterling kingdoms are affected, which since horses and fell beasts are models and chariots are models, then they also get Fury. I'm actually for this. So this sounds a little bit weird, but Fury is Okay, so Easterlings are a very, very small faction, and they're made even smaller with the fact that Khandish aren't all that great. So, how do you make them really, really interesting? The Dragon Knights make them interesting, their failing style, stuff like that. But I just kind of thought of it as a neat little extra perk that they're the only faction in the game that can Fury their mounts. That's just cool. I kind of like that. I thought it was pretty interesting. It doesn't really break anything, and actually it kind of gives necessary advantages to certain models. I don't think cataphracts are really all that great. I personally don't. And I think it's interesting they can get a drum in their warband. They're the only ones that can get a drum on a general unit. Most of them else need a hero to do that, so that's kind of cool. And then you have the chariots, which it's kind of cool that they're monstrous mounts, but they're actually generally weak because you can kill the rider at defense 4. But giving fury to just sort of everything is just a cool little buff. I don't think it really breaks anything. It's very easy to stop. You can kill the war priest, sap his will, whatever. Evil has no problem with it, and if you're good, I mean, yeah, they're saving their horses. It's kind of frustrating, but it's no more frustrating than putting Malbeth in a Dwarven Kazakh Guard army. It's like, I mean, I actually think it's less frustrating than that, and that's perfectly legal. So, I wouldn't. Once again, rules as written. I would say that the models are protected, all the horses and everything are protected, and if you come and play at Nova, that is how we would rule, unless someone else plays otherwise, and I even think the GBHL rule in that way too. But I also think it depends on the tournament because they also run a little differently than we do. So anyway, guys, if you have any questions that you want answered, go ahead in the comment section below. A lot of you guys remember we actually post 2 of these a week. And so back when we were like last year around this time in the end of February to September up until Nova, that's when our hardcore like pressing out videos is going out. So 2 of these a week will be released, and we will be answering questions, and of course we'll be taking questions from the One Ring forums and stuff like that, keeping you guys up to date in the community because it's just more content. And obviously we're not trying to steal GBHL's Speak Friend in Question. I think personally having multiple venues to talk to is awesome because as hobbyists we love conversation, so why not? So anyway, guys, I hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching, and I will hear from you very soon. Bye.